scripts is very wide. So I'm going to give you a resume of the main issues based on my past and current research on this subject, which I'm going to explain further in a book that I'm writing. Did you answer the transgenerational script questionnaire? Well, the purpose of sending this to you before the seminar was that you could find some interesting data about your transgenerational family and couple script before the seminar. If you did not answer the TSQ, which is the name of this instrument, you may want to do it after the webinar, because it's interesting to find out several things about our family and couple script. On my workshops, I usually ask for presentations from each person in the group as a way to start a group process, knowing who you are and what do you want to get from this time together. If we do it now, it will take a large amount of time due to the large of the group. So I've been thinking that it will be better due to the short time that we have, that we go on with the subject and then leave 15 or 20 minutes for questions from the group. Is this fine for you? Or any other opinion? Oh, anyway, if you find really important for clarification to interrupt me at any moment, please feel free to do it. Well, I'm going to show you a PowerPoint presentation while doing some theoretical explanations. And I'm also going to include a few examples based on my clinical practice. First thing that I like to say when I talk about transgenerational scripts is that people are like trees, because we both have roots, leaves, a trunk, and fruits. And something curiously, because I think that things happen for something. This morning, I woke up thinking about reading a book I have from Thich Nhat Hanh, which he passed away, I think, the last year. And he was a Vietnamese monk. And as I'm very interested in the theme of mindfulness, and I include it in my work, this morning I woke up and I thought, well, I have to read something about him. And suddenly, at a book that I have, which the title is Peace in Every Step, suddenly I opened the book and I found something related to the trees. So, yeah, and I want to read this to you. It's not very large. One autumn day, I was in a park, absorbed in the contemplation of a very small, beautiful leaf, shaped like a heart. Its colors was almost red, and it was barely hanging on the branch, nearly ready to fall down. I spent a long time with it and asked the leaf a number of questions. I found that the leaf had been a mother to the tree. Usually we think that the tree is the mother and the leaves are just children. But as I looked at the leaf, I saw that the leaf is also the mother to the tree. There are hundreds of thousands of stems linking us to everything in the cosmos, supporting us and making it possible for us to be. Do you see the link between you and me? Mm-hmm. If you are not there, I am not here. Mm-hmm. So we all depend on each other. And then he says, mm-hmm, I was completely alive. I worked hard to help nourish the tree, and now much of me is in the tree. I'm not limited by this form. I'm also the whole tree. And when I go back to the soil, I will continue to nourish the tree. So I don't worry at all. As I leave this branch and float to the ground, I will wave to the tree and tell her, I will see you again very soon. So this is the analogy that, well, what he wrote in this book that was not casual. I think that I was reading this or awakened thinking about reading this chapter who I haven't read before from this man. I think this spoke about the similarity that I see between the genealogical tree and the trees in the world, as in the whole nature. A script transmission through generations. Eric Berne said in his book, in the Hello book, the most intricate part of a script analysis is in clinical practice, tracing back the influences of the grandparents. And this is a definition of transgenerational scripts. It is a systemic pattern that is repeated in people's life, groups, and organizations, because organizations also have a transgenerational script based on the original idea or plan of the founder and his situation at the moment that he found this association or organization, like the ITAA, for example. Through feelings, symptoms, behaviors, and styles of relationship that reproduce the life history of our ancestors. These scripts can be healthy, banal, or pathological. And so I invite you to see these different kind of scripts in your own life and in the life of your clients as well. The transgenerational script is transmitted through couples, families, and culture by means of unconscious communication, limiting the awareness of the present and the development of one's potential. And these scripts are codified in our ego states. I suppose that all of you know about ego states, so I'm not going to make an explanation of this that I usually do. But what happens is that as these scripts are mostly in the parent ego state, they are contaminating our adult ego state. But at the same time, our child ego state has a lot of relationship in your internal dialogues with the parent ego state, which are the introjections that we have from our parents and grandparents and grandparents and so on. Berne, in his book, talks about 4 basic ways in which scripts are passed from grandparents to succeeding generations. And one, he says, is in an undifferentiated way, when grandparents treat all their children in the same way and each receives similar messages. This is like similar messages for men or women, or for cultural things, for example, like traditions, and sometimes for hating people or racism or things like that, a lot of prejudices. The other one is linked by the same injunction, when children are treated in a different way based on specific characteristics. So I like to, when I teach transgenerational scripts, I like to teach injunctions, and you will see that later. Because what I have seen in my clinical practice is that family are linked by some specific injunctions. By the way, the questionnaire that you answer, which is a qualitative questionnaire, at this moment I am involved in another research about codependency, patterns of attachment, and transgenerational script, which I'm working with 2 institutes in Rome and mine here in Mexico. And for that research, we are gathering in each country a sample of 450 people. And we are validating an instrument, which is the quantitative version of the TSQ, the Transgenerational Script Questionnaire, and is based on transactional analysis. And one part of this questionnaire is based on injunctions. So to see what's the injunction that is running over a family from different generations. And I'm also testing in this questionnaire existential position, the way to manage strokes, drivers, different themes that are repeated in a script, both positive and negative scripts, and what else? I don't remember at this moment, but there are like 6 factors, 6 different factors. But well, we are in the process of doing that. The other way that Berne used to say it was alternating between sexes, which means that the script very frequently move from men to women in the family and from women to men. So I really admire, as I think many of you do too, Eric Berne, because he was really a visionary. What I have been looking at my clients is very, very frequently that this happens, which means that the script jumps a generation. So it's very frequently that we find that something that we are doing in our current life. And what I mean about this is a relationship that we have or the way that we are relating to other people, maybe the couple, maybe to our siblings or with our parents, is something that we are repeating from our grandparents. Both sides could be from our mother's side or our parents' side, and sometimes both. So this is also what he means by skipping generations, sometimes acting out family secrets. So this acting out means that it's a way to denounce something that was unresolved in past generations. And how I see this is that when we are living something like this, we have the duty to resolve that, to, in a way, to transform this script, if it is a pathological script, for example, to leave something better and healthier for our next generations. And this is, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about family scripts. But if you think about this, we can also use this concept in cultural scripts. Something very frequently that people forget is their history in their countries. And wars and hate between countries is always related to some unfinished business from our ancestors. Here are the script injunctions that you know, and I did a couple of additions at the end, and I see the injunctions as the knots in the tree. To explain how these injunctions are something that that are stopping the energy, the free energy to flow. So I will talk more about this when I talk at the end about Fisis, because that positive energy to that help us to flow and be free and think and be independent and autonomous is several times blocked by these different knots in the tree. So, as I told you, you will find in the scripts, in your transgenerational script, or in other people, in your client's script, like 2 or 3 main injunctions. And for me, one that is very important at the end is the one that don't surpass your ancestors. Because usually people feel, unconsciously, they feel guilt, even not being guilt, of course, about stepping on the ground that their ancestors were not possible to do. This is something that is not really new. Freud used to, in his writings, he wrote at the end of his life something that I don't know if I'm going to translate it well, but is the people that that cannot do the things when they have success, which means that, and he explains something about the history of his own history when he went to Greece, and he was at the Parthenon walking, and he liked very much the Greek culture, and you know that he used to do his writings from his personal life, and he recognized that as he was a lover of the Greek culture, as his father used to be, but his father was never able to go to Greece. And then that way he began to see in his patients that several of them felt guilty when they were doing something that their parents were not able to do. And you will see that in several people as well. So it's important to see that people may get a permission to move from there. Here is a diagram also from from What Do You Say After You Say Hello, the book from Berne, which I like very much because it explains very clearly the transmission of life scripts from one to the next generation. And here you will see what he meant before. This may be a female client, and her script is coming from her grandmother. So changing sexes from a woman to a man, woman, man, and the granddaughter as a woman also. And here you will see also that this is something that is running. Well, I made some additions to this original diagram, and the additions I made was to put the arrows also in P2, because this makes sense to me due to the fact that I was talking about cultural scripts, about family scripts, about models that we have from our ancestors. But it also runs from P1 to all these different generations. Here we can see 5 generations. And it is running through a way of relationship, the way we learn how to relate with other people or with some specific people. Like, for example, with the couple, where we may have our own relationship and a model of couple relationship that we have from our ancestors, where there can be several themes repeating, like, for example, infidelity, which is very common. That is something that can be repeated from one generation to the other, and some others as well. Berne also talked about what kind of life did your grandparents live? And then John James, he wrote a very interesting article several years ago, which is related to this, the name I think is Family Script Parade or something, or the Family Parade. And he did some additions in relationship to couples relationship. Berne said that clients usually have 3 types of answers to these questions. One is ancestral pride, when grandchildren feel proud of their grandparents and imagine sharing personality characteristics. This is very common. I remember in my own family, not now because some of these people have died already, but I remember when we used to meet for Christmas or any other celebration. Several of my cousins feeling very proud of our grandparent from the father's side. And they were bragging about him. And it was very funny because usually those meetings end up talking about that grandparent, which I think was like a ghost in my family. So, and what happened is that what I saw that the people who were most bragging about him, they were not doing really anything important in their own life. So it was like living through the success of a grandparent life, but not having the permission to surpass him. The other one, does this make sense to you? Because I'm talking and talking and I don't know if I'm saying it in a way that you are understanding or not. Yes? Well, if not, let me know. Idealization. Grandchildren feel that a grandparent is more tender and sensitive than the child's own parents. Well, here is a story about this. A client used to have an idealization of her grandparent because she was hit by her mother several times when she was a child. And when she was scared and crying, she went to her grandparent who lived in the same house and sat in on his lap, and he was very tender and nurturing to her. So she began to idolize this man. What she was not aware as a child is that this grandparent was an alcoholic and he was drinking at the same time that he was hugging her. So then she married to an alcoholic man. And because she was looking for that tenderness on him, which at the beginning he used to have with her when he was drunk, but of course he became rude and abusive when he was drunk. Another is rivalry. Grandchildren compete with one of her or his parents, diminishing the parent value by comparing him or her with an idolized grandparent. This is also very common, and sometimes you will see in families that that parents and grandparents are competing for the love of the children. So it's like this game in TA, mine is better than yours. So then sometimes children prefer to stay with grandparents because they don't set rules and they are always willing to let them do whatever they want. And so I'm also a grandmother. And something I have learned over the time is that I have to stop saying what I think many times, because it's important that my grandchildren see only that we are coherent, my daughter and I, with our way of educating them. Now let's talk a little bit about family secrets, which this is the shadow, I will say, about the about the transgenerational scripts, because family secrets refer to an unknown knowledge. This means something that you know without knowing that you know it. By the way, I wrote a chapter for a book which was edited by Richard Erskine, and we were several authors. And my chapter, the title is Transgenerational Scripts, the Unknown Knowledge. So you will see there how a family secret may run through different generations. The title of this book is Life Script. Life Scripts, an unconscious life pattern. Something like that. I don't remember exactly the title. So this knowledge is encoded in our ego states and contain the unresolved feelings and emotions of our ancestors, even if we never met them. This is the strange thing, because several people will say, well, but I never met my grandparents, so I did not have a relationship with them. But as the trees that we were talking about at the very beginning, we are all linked through an energy field that exists in the groups and in the families, in all kinds of groups. Like in this group, even by internet, we are beginning to feel an energy from the group, if we let us to feel it. At least I'm doing. So I wanted to have you, some of your faces in the screen, and not only the presentation, because it's a way to feel linked to you, which is wonderful that SATA is organizing these webinars, because then we are together people from different countries, from very different parts of the world. And it's also the energy that we have in the ITAA. And sometimes we need to see what is unresolved in the life of what was unresolved in the lives of our ancestors. And the way to see that is that we begin to do an acting out of that situation. A theme that is repeated very frequently also are the fights between siblings, for example. The fights about heritages. A difficult relationship between a mother and her daughter, or between parents and their siblings, issues like abandonment. And there is a time when all those unresolved things begin to appear as an acting out in the scripts of the people in their life. Usually this happens. And what I have seen is this happens between 25 and probably 40 years old. So this energy field exists in the families, but there is something that is besides that, which is unconscious communication. And unconscious communication is nonverbal. So you can find that by ways of being, by ways of accepting or not accepting things. Margaret Mead used to say that the basic things in any culture and family go without saying. The most important things are taken for granted, never clearly stated, leading you to guess them through ways of life, hints, and nonverbal communication. My contribution to the transgenerational scripts, original beginning, something that that Eric Berne began to talk about in his life, but was incomplete as many other things because he died very early. Are the mechanisms of transgenerational script transmission, which I have seen as the ways to transmit the script from one to the next generation. And these two are based on transactional analysis, ulterior transactions, and psychological games. And the other two are based on psychoanalysis, transference psychodynamics, and projective identification. So we will see this with some examples. The ulterior transactions, you know that this occurs at two levels of communication simultaneously, social and psychological. And children end up acting out the hidden psychological message of their ancestors as in the family secrets. So here, for example, we see a father dialogue with his daughter, and he's saying, I can't stand your mother anymore. Mm-hmm. So this is the social transaction. But at the psychological level, what he's saying is, tell me what to do. So you can see here the inversion of roles, where he takes where he acts as a child, wanting to have advice from his daughter. Mm-hmm. And then the daughter answers, well, why don't you divorce? Mm-hmm. Because she saw that they were fighting all the time. But she usually knew that he was not going to do anything about that. So at the psychological, with the psychological games, we can see here the drama triangle with the three roles, persecutor, rescuer, and victim, where the daughter's game is, I'm only trying to help you, and the father games is, yes, but, and will be forever that way. I see psychological games like reenactments, because they contain an unconscious wish to understand or give meaning to unresolved issues from the past, even when the social transaction appears as something different. And these reenactments are the result from transference psychodynamics. So here I have a diagram which is similar to Carlo Moiso's diagram about transference, with the difference that I'm also including a child-to-child transference transaction. Because Moisos was only from child to parent. From child to parent, because what we see is like in a screen in other people, someone that we are projecting something that is from ourselves onto other people. And from child to child, because it's that energy field, that unconscious communication that go from P1 to P1 in the families. So the transference relationship contains the emotional tone involved in the original relationship experience with the parents. Berne used to say that scripts belong to the reign of transference transactions.
May I ask a question here, Gloria?
Yes, of course.
I'm interested for you to say a little bit more about the child to child here, because it looks very interesting and it's new. And my first sort of thinking is wondering why the arrow goes from left to right. Is it not something that's being taken in and the arrow running the other way or running both ways? I'm just intrigued by the direction.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your observation, Diane. I do this because I see that all that nonverbal communication comes from child to child. And I see that it comes, well, I'm putting here from the client to father, mother, therapist, partner, because it's what you are doing with other people. And other people may not be aware that you are doing that on them.
Okay, right. Right,
so
okay.
Then, of course, they may have an answer to this, and that answer may reinforce the same script or not.
Okay.
Yes, so that's the reason. But you do this when you have a projection, like what you may do with a therapist, for example, that and this is very important for therapists to be aware, because if you react in the same way that people are expecting in their script, you will be re-traumatizing the client instead of giving other options that the client might feel surprised to see, oh, why did Diane is different? Why did she react different than the people I know?
Okay, yeah, so that makes more sense to me in terms of the energetic transmission, because then it might be around why I'm suddenly feeling something in my body that may relate to the client.
Yes.
Whereas the other one, I might be experiencing them as projecting onto me and waiting for a response. So that makes sense to me. Thank you. I understand it better now.
Okay. Now, see, if we see, I will talk more about this when I go to the next way of transmission, which is projective identification. But meanwhile, I would like to explain in this diagram what I see as the script in the inner dialogues of the client. So here is the client and the parent or grandparent, and this is the childhood relationship that we used to have. But this relationship, this transaction becomes introjected in our personality. So our internal dialogues are based on that transaction, but sometimes we are not aware of that. Other colleagues have talked about this. I don't remember at this moment. Well, Van Jones had talked about this with a different name. I don't remember how he calls this. And also Ray Little. But I don't have the names they use for this. But what I mean about this is an original transaction that is introjected in your ego states, and then you you repeat that in your internal dialogues. I have seen that when I do some Gestalt work and I have a client in a double chair, and how this client is repeating in that dialogue what used to be the dialogue that he or she had with a parent, or the parent with a grandparent. And as we have that, I usually like to tell people that the most important relationship in our lives is the relationship with ourselves. Because we can make changes outside. But if we don't change the internal relationship, we will continue projecting this onto other people as a transference psychodynamic. So all those impasses that we may have between our parent and child ego states are things that need to be worked, because are ways to keep a dependence on the original script, are ways to, even if we are adults, and as when I was talking about the tree, even that the leaf may not be in the tree, we still keep link because we are not so free, and we are free. We can become autonomous when, or be more autonomous. Become is like too much, I think, but we may want to be more autonomous in a way that we resolve our internal dialogues. And here is the other mechanism, which is projective identification. I see this mechanism as the one that is this is in the other ones as well, and as the most important mechanism in the transmission of the script. This was, originally mentioned by Melanie Klein, which described it as a defense mechanism transmitted by fantasies, in which the person introduces parts of her or himself onto objects, which means other person, for purposes of avoiding unpleasant or unacceptable feelings. So, projective identification, I show it in this diagram, which has a kind of projection as well, as you will see here in this arrow from P2 to P1, but at the same time from P1 to P1, which is projective identification is like it's like a contagious thing, like when we get the virus from other people. Am I saying that well? Do you understand? Like when somebody has a cold and you get it. So this is how I see, and also is Petrushka Clarkson used to talk about projective identification like an hypnotic phenomena. Like if you get into a trance way of being. So it may happen in any other way, but these are only examples, but I think it's part of unconscious communication. Like when you see a client and then when the client leaves, the client leaves happy and you feel sad. Mm-hmm. So what's going on? Mm-hmm. What's happening to me? Mm-hmm. So it's also very important to understand the feelings of other people and to become more empathic. Recently, the neurophysiology development and the human genome studies are advancing a lot. And there are some things that are showing up. Oh, which are like mirror neurons, which are the emotional closeness allow the biology of one person to influence the biology of another person. This is something that Cosolino had been discovering and talking about this since 2006. Oh, now it's not moving. I'm going to close the presentation and open it again because it's not moving anymore.
Sure, okay.
So all this comes to what we know from Fanita English as the episcript. And it's very important to become aware of the hot potato in a relational script, in a family script. For what? Because we need to eat, to digest, and transform this hot potato instead of continue passing it through the future generations. The force of Fisis. Fisis, as you know, is a concept that Berne began to talk about in 1957 in his first book, where he dedicated a chapter to transactional analysis. And in that book, he said, Fisis is the force of nature, which eternally strives to make things grow and to make growing things more perfect. So Clarkson used to say that Fisis is Berne's unique addition to the other two great unconscious forces described by psychoanalysis, which are Eros and Thanatos in human life. And he sees all three as, and she, I mean she, it's not he, and she sees all three, oh my goodness. As the background of psychological life. Clarkson also said that the homeostasis has advantages of comfort and adaptation, and that self-actualization and evolution is not an easy task. Nevertheless, it is work to develop self-consciousness and break the generational chain. So the unresolved issues in our ancestors are knots in our generational tree that can get solved by the force of Fisis, by being in contact with our inner energy. So this is when how I used to walk also, to work also with mindfulness, because I have seen that when people are in contact with themselves, and they can be in contact with other people. And that means really to be in contact with your here and now and what is really happening with you at this moment in your life. So my recommendation several times, which maybe is not in this presentation, but what I say to people is that I recommend them to learn to meditate and do it at least 10 minutes per day. 20 will be better. And I also recommend, as part of body work, yoga, hatha yoga, because this kind of yoga is meditation in movement. And through doing this kind of yoga, you become aware of your potential and your limitations as well. And when you accept your both things without judgment, then you move through a next step in a very gentle way, like surpassing the difficulties that you had at the beginning. And I see a similarity between this that happens in the body with what happens in the mind and in our emotions. So I like to say to my clients and to teach that the golden tool for therapy, I'm slow because I'm translating in my mind. The golden tool for therapy is acceptance, because change occurs from acceptance in a very smooth way, which doesn't mean that you are not willing to change. That means that you accept who you are and without judgment, and how other people are without judgment. Not trying to change. The change occurs in a natural way when you accept. Because usually people want to fight with themselves to make a change in their lives. And this doesn't work, because we become enemies of ourselves. And that only helps to develop a critical parent and to reinforce our scripts. So when you accept, and even that you don't like something, it will help to dissolve the impasse and get through that. The impasse between the knots in our family tree and Fisis. So here in this little photo, you will see the knots, which are the injunctions, and Fisis, like this arrow, like the arrow that Eric Berne has in his book, coming from the script matrix. So he put that row coming from the child ego state. I think is also through the other ego state, the child with the energy, but of course the adult with the consciousness and awareness. Because what I was talking about mindfulness is directed to the adult. because many times people think that they meditate with a child. I think that meditation is really a work for the adult ego state. Here are a list of permissions that I had developed for breaking free the generational chain. Some, like for don't exist, live unconditional, remodel and reconstruct your life. Like for don't be you, be yourself, be a man, a woman. For don't be close, share love and intimacy. For don't grow, you may grow. For grow fast, enjoy what you do and have fun. For don't think clear and make decisions. For don't feel and express your feelings. I like to explain people here that that expression of feelings had to pass through the adult ego state, depending who is the other person and what is the purpose that you have to express your feelings. You have to think before expressing your feeling, and be aware of the impact that it may have on to other people. For don't do is make things happen. For don't be sane, be healthy and well. For don't belong to your family, to groups and relationships. For don't success, be successful. I cannot see the other ones here because I have the photos of some of the people here. So can any one of you tell me which one is this?
You are important. You are important.
You are important for don't be important. And this other one?
You can surpass your ancestors.
Okay, so of course this is for don't surpass your ancestors. And this other one, the last one, oh.
You can change.
Okay, for like a permission to change. So this came up to be like having a new life from old roots, which happened to be also, I remember the title of a conference in ITAA. So I can say, I can break the generational chain by throwing the dirty water of the bath without throwing the baby. So we have to keep the positive part of our transgenerational scripts, because of course, not everything is negative. If that will be, we won't be here. So we have several ways of being that we learn from our ancestors in several themes and traditions. So I recommend people to become aware of that, to honor their ancestors, to honor what we have learned from them, because this is the way to accept also all the positive things that we have inherited from the people in our family and feel proud of them. So how to do it is to become conscious of my transgenerational script and make an adult decision to resolve the transgenerational script. As I said, focus on the reinforcement of the positive side of these scripts, and to understand and give his or her place to my ancestors It's very unhealthy for a family system to exclude a person. Because when you exclude someone, like not wanting to, like if that person will not exist, you are leaving a hole in the system, a hole that may be filled by a younger person in the family. It's like, this doesn't mean, of course, that you are accepting a grandparent who was abusive with his children, or who did something that he ended up in jail. But that means that you are not making more judgments onto him. So just you can talk about him. It's not something that we cannot talk in the family. And even that we don't agree with his or her behavior, we may treat that person as someone that is part of the family. So it's important that we also honor and set order in the function of my ancestors. This is something that Bert Hellinger from Families Constellations used to say in his philosophy about transgenerational scripts. I think that this is something that functions when we respect and honor and set order in the function of my ancestors. Even that I don't agree with all the other or many other things that this author is, the way that this author is working at this moment. We can also make a project and build a lifestyle that I want. Develop my sense of humor, because even that this seems like something very serious, we can also see it in a different way. And it's important that we learn, as I told you, to take care of our body and our spirit in different ways, and to commit to continue learning through life. I usually say that we can continue learning even a few moments before we die, if we are aware, and probably if we are in coma as well, but I don't know. So here is something about the research that I'm doing, because the original data I have is from my previous research. And now this is following the same line, because these colleagues, Antonella Fornaro and Eva Silvi Rossi from Rome, are very interested in these themes, and they asked me to do a joint research with them. So this is the continuation, and this is what we are doing at this moment. And the codependency instrument, we are validating that also for both sexes, because it was done originally only for women. And we are also validating, well, in Mexico, we are validating the one questionnaire for patterns of attachment, because this is from Frali, he is the author, because that's already validated in Italy, but we are doing the validation as well in Mexico. But it will take us time, still some time, to describe what we have found and to write an article about, or some articles about this research. these are some publication and instruments for this CATS project. I call it CATS. At this moment, the project in Mexico, last week, we finished gathering the sample of 450 people. I'm going to have a meeting with my colleagues next Friday in the morning. And I think that they are starting, because we started first in Mexico, and they are making a replication of all what we are doing here over there. So these publications are the instrument of codependencies in Spanish by this editorial. And also I have a book about this, which is in Spanish, and which is the codependency script in the in the partner relationships, diagnosis and treatment. And this book was translated to Italian. Here is in 2015. Il copione di codependenza nella relazione di coppia, diagnosi e piano di intervento. And the other one is the Transgenerational script questionnaire in the quantitative part that is on the process of validation, but is based on the same one that you had as previous material for this workshop. And then as references for this work, I have what I said, and also here is the title of the book that was edited by Richard Erskine, which is Life Scripts, a Transgenerational Analysis of Unconscious Relational Patterns. And I also have an article in the American Journal of Orthopsychiatry, which explains the hard data of my previous research. And also I have a chapter in the other book edited by Richard more recently, which is how to change a transgenerational script. And the title of this book, I'm remembering because I cannot see the title here, is Contemporary Methods in Transactional Analysis. Well, so this is all by now. So I would like to know if you have any questions, or if you want me to go back to any slide or whatever you want. I think I finished the presentation before of the time I was expecting, because I didn't have communication with the people in the group. So now we may have communication. I will be glad to talk with you. I can't listen.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, Sharon.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sharon, yes, and I can see you as well.
Okay. Okay. What I want to know is, how do you actually practically work with this material? Do you do it in a constellation setup, or do you do it one-on-one in therapy? How do you actually work with transgenerational scripts?
I do it, I use several techniques. One that I use very frequently is the parent interview. And I use it with the grandparents and sometimes with several generations. And I have found that very useful. What I do is something that something that was originally described by Virginia Satir, which is the family sculpture.
Mhm.
And also I do some psychodrama, which it looks like in a family constellation, but it's not really a family constellation because I'm not trained on that. But I have beginning to do that from years ago and found it useful for transgenerational scripts. I mean, the psychodrama thing. Mm-hmm. And I do that in silence. Mm-hmm. And something that I'm recently doing is what I'm going to do at the conference in Berlin. I'm going to have a workshop that the title is, I think, Untangling Transgenerational Scripts or something like that, which is the way I'm working by using psychodrama with the internal dialogue, with the script within the person, what they are saying to themselves, the introjections and what is the relationship with yourself. So I also use other techniques depending on what's going on at the moment with the person. I use today with Gestalt in several ways, and with spiritual work, which I mean by doing by consciousness, by mindfulness, by being body work, to be in contact with your breath, the way you breathe, with your feelings, with your senses. So several ways. I'm writing a book, but I'm very slow. I hope to finish. I hope this year. Did I answer, Sharon, your question?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, you did. You did. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question as well, Gloria. I want to know a little bit about, do you work individually mostly, or do you sometimes work with a whole family or in couples? And if so, what are the implications? How do you work differently, say in couples work or family?
In all the ways that you have mentioned, Diane.
Okay.
Yes, for example, I'm going to see a client this afternoon in individual therapy, where she began to talk about her grandmother at the last session, and she was so enthusiastic of talking about this woman. So I asked her to write to write what she knows. She knows about this grandmother, and she sent me a paper, like 3 sheets of paper. So I haven't had the time to read it, but I'm going to read it now, and we are going to work on that, because I think this is she's a very successful family woman interested in gender scripts, and her grandmother, she's Mexican, my client, and her grandmother, who was from Spain, was a woman with similar characteristics. So she found that she had something from her. But you know, this woman, the grandmother, also had a big shadow in several situations of her life. So my intention with my client, and we talk about this, and this like a contract at this moment, is to separate both things. So she may accept and continue with the positive part of her grandmother script and leave the other part, which is related to have violence in her couple relationship. So that's what we are going to work, separate, and she probably may come to a workshop that I'm going to have here in Mexico in May. It's a retreat workshop, a 4-day retreat about redecision therapy, because and she may come as well, because I also work with redecision in the parent ego state.
Okay, right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gloria, two things. I'm wondering if it might be useful to close your presentation so we can see everybody on one screen at one time.
Okay.
If people want to look at something, I'm sure you can easily find the slide again.
That's perfect. Thank you for the suggestion. So here it is.
And my making sense of this for me, I work developmentally as a coach, and the part that has really struck me is the part where you spoke about your work with mindfulness and how acceptance can lead to dissolving the impulse. Because I'm noticing in clients, they often get an awareness of what their limiting beliefs are, and then their first instinct is to turn away from it completely and almost shun it and push it behind them. And the instinctively, as a coach, saying, what's the gift within that you can take and transform, really does seem to be a new way for them of thinking about it. I'd be curious to hear what some of the other coaches think of that as well in the way you work.
Yes. Sometimes people talk about getting rid of their script. I don't want to get rid of my script. And I read at one of the script newsletter that Fanita English said that as well. And I don't want that, because the script is your history. So, and we all have a history. So what I want only is to be aware of my script and the limitations of my script, and develop another script of my own, develop a way of being in the here and now, different and with more advantages for me and my descendants. So when I think, and this is my thinking, that it's not possible to get out from your script completely. Because you will move from your script to a different position, and you become aware and develop your acceptance of it. But if you fight against your script, you will be reinforcing that. And so I think that we may be in and out of our script sometimes in life. And more frequently out from our script as we develop self-acceptance. And but something that is important is that we be careful when we make decisions to see if we are making those decisions from the script or outside from the script. And you can feel that also in your body, because you feel like a different kind of energy and you don't feel in peace. You feel fighting. Well, that's my thinking. Many people may not agree with me, but that's what I have seen with my clients and myself that works.
Thank you.
What do you think about this?
I think that's a useful piece about how we're feeling in our bodies. If there seems to still be hard work or striving or fighting, it's probably still from within script. But a sense of peace gives a clue.
Yes.
I have a question to follow on to that. And that is that it sounds a little bit like a contradiction when you say...
I cannot say that again because I cannot listen you well.
Okay. It sounds a little bit like a contradiction when you say you don't want to get rid of your script and at the same time making decisions out of script has a negative connotation. So we don't want to make decisions from script, but at the same time, we want to be okay with having our script. How does that fit together?
I'm glad that you say that. What I say usually about this is that change is a paradox. Because you change when you accept. So when you fight against, when you want to change by fighting, it seems like more congruent, but you are reinforcing whatever it is. Even with our relationships with other people, when you have a conflict with someone and you began to discuss and give your own arguments and things like that, there may be a moment of enlightenment when each part accepts some other things that the other one was not, that you were not looking at the beginning. But when it becomes a power game, then nobody wins. And it's better to see and accept what's going on and take your time for yourself to see if it's worthwhile to continue with this discussion or not, and to see where the other person is at the same time. But it's different when it's a discussion that may raise to enlighten ideas for both parts, than when it became a power game. And I think that sometimes people want to change, like developing a power game within themselves. That's what I mean. So that's what I see, that change is a paradox.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Layo.
Yes, I'd like to agree with you, Gloria, because I have a little set of what I call A-team attitudes for when I'm working with people. And they are awareness, acceptance, allowing, and alternatives. And they all balk at the acceptance. They'll go, oh, can't do that. I've come to change.
Yes.
But gradually, as you say, that is the key. Mm.
Yes.
So thank you for reinforcing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm glad that you have experienced something similar in your practice as well.
Very much so.
Yes.
Hi Gloria. When we talk about acceptance, is that the same as observation without judgment, or even experience without judgment?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I mean. That doesn't mean that you agree. And that doesn't mean that you accept the way of thinking of the other person as if you have to think in the same way. It means that you accept the way the other person is. That's all.
Okay.
And when it's with another person or when it's within yourself, maybe the same. Doesn't mean that you agree, that you like. It's only that you accept without judgment.
I have another question, which is slightly more philosophical in nature. So if it's not appropriate, I'm happy to discuss it another way. And that is, have you seen a parallel between transgenerational scripts and the philosophy of reincarnation?
Very good question. I cannot say that I believe or not believe in reincarnation, because I think that there are not proofs for that. And what I can say is that there is an energy field. Even when when somebody dies, the energy of that person stays in the family or in the house or in their objects or clothes for a time. And that's and when I work with groups, I like to call the energy of the ancestors in our group, to feel that in their body by recognizing their names of their parents and grandparents. So the way I start my seminars, and well, this is a webinar, so, but we are not able to do that here, but the way I start is asking people to say his or her name and the family of their, and the names of her or his parents and grandparents. Like, for instance, for me, which my name is Gloria Noriega Gayol, I stand up and I say very proud, I'm Gloria, and I'm the daughter of Isabel and Roberto, and I'm the granddaughter of Inigo, Maria, Roberto, and Virginia. And you, Alex, I see that your last name is Van Oostveen. Mm-hmm. And you may have another second last name from your mother's side. So you can stand also and feel proud and say that. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, feel and close your eyes. And at the same time, you may start by feeling the energy of those people in your family. So I don't know if that, going back to your question, I don't know if if reincarnation exists or not. But what I know is about that energy that you can also feel when you get into, for example, if you are going to rent an apartment, or when you get into a new place, you can feel the energy, positive or negative energy in that place. Sometimes you say, oh, I don't like how I feel here. Or you say, oh, this is a wonderful place to be. Mm-hmm. And that might be related to the people who have been there before. So that's the kind of energy that I see and what I'm working with in a very respectful way, because I think we need to be very respectful about this. Mm-hmm. Is that okay for you, Alex?
That's okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
May I come with another question, Gloria, about Gloria, about the energy field? Because do you ever have a situation where there is an ancestor or a parent or whatever who was so abusive and so malevolent that you really don't want to bring that energy into the person's life, or they really need to keep that energy away? How do you handle that?
Yes. Well, while doing, for example, the parent interview, mm-hmm, I never do that with a person representing an ancestor that have been very pathological, mm-hmm, because I don't want my client to get that energy within her body. Mm-hmm. So I prefer, in that case, to put that person in a chair at some distance, mm-hmm, and imagine what that person will be saying, or just to talk to that person in case that is necessary. But yes, I'm very careful about that. Because also you need to know, I think, something about the family history of the person before doing these kind of interventions. Mm-hmm. So I usually know that with my clients, but for example, I've been in contact with people from Nicaragua and Colombia who want to come to my workshop in May. Mm-hmm. So my what I ask is for an interview by Skype before that. And then I ask them to send me self-biography, a short self-biography, 2-3 pages. And if I have doubts, I don't work with them. I'm very protective in my work. Did I answer, or is there something else, Diane? I'm not listening.
Answered fine. Yeah, thank you. That was helpful.
Okay. Do you agree with me?
Agree with you. And I'm thinking of one client that I worked with, where even having her father in a remote chair in the room was too much.
Yes.
We had to get him out fast.
Yes.
Yeah. And in fact, perhaps in some ways it was helpful, because I told him very firmly he had to leave.
Okay.
And maybe in some ways that was helpful.
Well, yes. Yes, I understand. Sometimes that may happen as well. Yes. And also, you know, a person may have different parts in their personality. But yes, I'm thinking also about that. Sometimes it may be necessary. But if you do that, that doesn't mean that you cannot speak about that person in the family, or that keep as a family secret. I cannot listen.
Sorry, I said I agree. I think that's very important.
Can I?
That there's
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment about that, because what I found in working with people who have these really toxic parents, where a parent interview is really not appropriate, constellations actually fill that gap in a very appropriate, very sensitive, very powerful way, where they can actually be at a distance and watch other people doing the work on their behalf. And I do that a lot.
And what is your question, Sharon? I cannot listen to you.
No, I'm just making a comment.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, a comment. Yes.
Can you?
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you.
I just think it's a very useful additional tool.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
If I think that all that is group work is very powerful. And when you work with the whole group, and the energy of the whole group is very powerful. Only that it needs to be done by a person who have knowledge about the client and for the protection of the client.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now Sharon's image is frozen at this moment.
Gloria, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Deborah.
I found this absolutely fascinating. I just have to say that I have to leave the meeting, but it's been absolutely mind-opening to listen to you for the past 2 hours, especially in the last half an hour with all this interaction. So thank you very much, and thank you, Karen, as well, for the invite and for meeting the others and hearing their opinions. But I will be leaving now. I didn't want to go without saying thank you and how much I appreciated it.
Oh, thank you very much, Deborah. I'm glad that you like it.
So I'm wondering if, as we've got maybe 10 minutes to go, there is a chance for people to say what they want to say as they take leave of the group. So everyone brings themselves in a small way as they're saying goodbye. And I'm not suggesting that you disappear once you said something. I know Debbie had to go for something. So for us to stay as a group till the end, if we can.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to check out. I found it really, really interesting. And never having known my grandparents, who were all dead before I was actually born, it's now intriguing me to think a lot more about what might be those stories, and both my parents died when I was quite young. So I'm now going to have to do some serious sort of thinking and reflecting and looking forward or looking backwards. And I'm also very much reflecting forward. So if I'm not aware of that, what impact is that having on my children? So thank you for a really, really thought-provoking session. So I don't have any questions at this point. I have lots of things to reflect on there. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, Veronica. And at the questionnaire that I sent to you, you will see that there are people in your family tree that you never know. So I suggest that you fill those spaces with what you think, what you imagine. Because if you imagine something, is because there is something important. Yes. And another thing I recommend is that if your parents or grandparents are still alive, have an interview with them. Because then and if possible, record that. Or make notes at the moment, because then you may forget, and that's something very useful to keep as information for the family.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to say something before we leave? I can tell you that I've been very happy sharing with you this, well, what I have learned over the years, and what still keeps me feeling passion about this theme. And I hope that this will be useful for your personal and professional lives. And to meet you in person, probably at any conference, or if you ever come to Mexico.
Michael, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I see mine. I think my name might be MNH, but I'm not sure what went on with the naming on the technology here. But my name's Michael. I'm fairly new to transactional analysis, so yeah. So this is I'm sort of catching up in the background theory and getting the sort of specialist theory at the same time. So it was really interesting. Thank you very much. I really locked into your golden rule I do around the paradoxical theory of change. So it's nice to see some overlap there. Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to walk us through this, Gloria.
Thank you, Michael.
Cool.
Hi, Gloria. Oh, somebody else. Gloria.
Carry on, Tanya.
Yes, hi. Thank you. It's been very affirming for me just listening. I work with constellations, and it just feels like it's such a parallel and so everything very synchronous. But I really enjoyed the part about the different ways that the scripts are passed down, because that feels like something quite new and really helpful. So thank you for that. I'm going to be looking at that a bit more closely, and hopefully, is there somewhere that we can read more about that specific aspect? Have you written in detail about the different ways that the scripts are passed down?
Well, I think that at the books, the English writing at the my chapters, for example, at this moment could be my chapters of in the 2 books edited by Richard Erskine. And also there is an article in the TAJ, which the title is Codependence, a Transgenerational Script.
Yes. Okay.
And that's but I think this article is from 2004, I think. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Mm-hmm.
So I know we've recorded the talk, and we will make it available on the website, on the SATAA website. And I think if I remember correctly, it will appear in 2 forms. One is either just audio, or one is with the visuals as well. So Gloria would need to check with you that you're okay that we have the visuals as well of your slides.
Yes, of course.
Because I think there's a wealth of information in those references you gave as well that it would be valuable for people to have.
Yes, yes, of course, Karen.
Di, would you like to thank Gloria? We've got the last 2 or 3 minutes to go.
It's my pleasure to do the official thanks to you for being part of the SATAA webinar series, for doing this wonderful presentation for us. As you know, I'm very interested in your work, so it was a delight for me, but I can see other people also were finding really interesting and useful things. And I'm also, so what I liked so much about it is that you rooted it so firmly in TA, right back to Berne and to his family parade. And yet you also brought it right up to date in terms of the more relational and psychodynamic stuff around transference and countertransference, as well as giving us things like mindfulness and yoga. And so it was a beautifully integrated piece, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it very, very much. So on behalf of everybody, many, many thanks, and look forward to seeing more of you in Berlin.
Thank you, Diane. And it has been an honor for me to have you here at this audience now as our new president of the ITAA.
That's a job.
No, I'm saying seriously.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the best in this work.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So if
thank you, Karen, as well. Thank you to Karen and other SATAA people for putting so much background work into this. Much appreciated.
Great. And to end off, as a representative of the SATAA executive, thank you all for being part of this. And check the website. We've already got the February and the March webinars. I think February's got lots of details. March has got a topic already. So please keep joining us. There are interesting topics from all around the world, trainers in different fields. I think we're in for a treat. And Gloria, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, everybody.
Great.
Thanks, Gloria.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.